We'll go ahead and we'll get started in a minute or so. All right, if you guys are all ready, we'll go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone to the webinar, IT Infrastructure and Tools to Connect the Workforce, presented by the Temecula Valley Chamber of Commerce. I would now like to introduce our event moderator. Adam Eventov is a Public Affairs Manager for SoCalGas. Please welcome Adam.
Thank you, Brooke. Hello and welcome, everyone. The purpose of this webinar is to educate the business community on IT infrastructure best practices. The current pandemic has changed so many things, the way that we do business and how we communicate. Well, this webinar will include information about performance tools, availability, security, and some other broader issues. Before we begin today's webinar, we have a few Zoom reminders. First, all attendees have been muted. If you have a question, please enter it in the chat box or the Q&A box. They are located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You'll only be able to see the presenters and their presentations or comments. We can't hear or see you. You will receive a follow-up email with a video copy of this presentation, along with any links and documents discussed. This will also, of course, include the panelists' contact information. We have an experienced panel of IT experts and professionals here today, and they're ready to answer some important questions. I'll now introduce each of them, and please welcome, first up is Corey Lezovsky with Tvc Inc. Corey is a TVC network technician who has studied business administration with an emphasis in information systems at Cal State San Marcos, go Cougars. Currently, he is studying for a CCNA Cisco certification. As a third-generation team member, he heads TVC Research and Development and is a Rotary Paul Harris Fellow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
A little bit about TVC Inc. real quick. TVC is a family-run corporation providing office technology solutions, specializing in cabling installation, of phone, network, Wi-Fi, and camera solutions. They have served small and medium-sized businesses in the Valley and in the United States since 1989. And TVC provides companies with up-to-date, user-friendly, and secure technology. Welcome, Corey.
Thank you very much for having me. Going to some of these questions that everybody has.
Well, along with Corey, we have Robert Burgett. Robert's experience in business operations, technology, and security are used to up-to-date help, drive automation and process improvement to meet business objectives and goals. He has served as an advisor, director of information technology and security, a CISO, for more than 2 decades. He finds it rewarding to leverage the power of technology to create a defensive, secure barrier to protect an organization's infrastructure. Working as a VCIO for many business sectors, both private, public, and not-for-profit, has allowed Bob to implement and secure all forms of technology from wired to wireless. Welcome, Robert. And then last but not least, we have James Lasco. James, as a CTO and visionary of Mythos Technology Incorporated, James's responsibilities include development of the technical direction, third-tier engineering, disaster recovery planning, and strategic development of internal and client infrastructures, as well as vision casting. He has been in the information technology field for more than 20 years, providing outsourced solutions throughout the United States. And James has become an expert in the fields of disaster recovery, good timing, business continuity, telecommunication, datacom facility build out, and management. Welcome all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As we get started, Corey, I think I'm going to throw you in the deep end first. Start to talk a little bit about some of the hardware, some of the nuts and bolts of the equipment that creating some of the challenges for folks both in business who are doing business at home or also still doing it at the office. First off, there are several types of communication: email, chat, instant messaging. Is there an advantage of one method of communicating over another, and is there a platform that's better to facilitate that one over another?
Not necessarily. I mean, instant messenger, email, phone calls, text messages all have their place on formality and speed of getting the message to people, you know. But do know we do offer platforms in that case where it would offer all of those. That way you guys would be able to properly, you know, communicate with customers and other employees efficiently. And again, platforms that we use, the biggest issue has been that moving away from the office, you've got your physical desk phone and network equipment that you are no longer there, you know, managing at that point. But do know there are options right now to move devices such as voice over IP phones and stuff away from the office and into the home, you know, safely and securely. That way you can, you know, manage to still run your business as is.
What are some of the pieces of equipment that we'll be needing? This may be, and this is a conversation, this is going to be a question for later, but one of the things that we're seeing is an increase in a need for different types of equipment. What are some of those types of equipment that we'll see at in-home? As
of right now, I mean, moving away even from the pandemic, you know, with upcoming years of everything becoming more cloud-based and moving away from, you know, pieces of equipment that are there on site, you are looking at that point, you can install applications on your phone, you know, apps on your phone to where you've got an app on your phone that does act as if you have a desk phone at your office there. You know, you've got, you know, in that case, then you can communicate with people inside and outside the office straight from your cell phone without having to give them a phone call. Biggest thing for us is especially when customers are, you know, not giving out personal cell phone numbers, they want to give out direct lines that will go directly to that cell phone. You know, those are sort of options. That way, if you're mobile and on the go and stuff, that works perfectly. That way you don't have to carry a desk phone with you, or at least call clients from your personal cell phone.
That's a great start, I think, to our discussion today. I'd like to jump into another set of questions, a little different direction. And I think that's kind of the big question for all of our panelists, which James, I think, posed first, which is, what are some common security concerns that might arise from employees working from home? SoCalGas, for example, has, I think, upwards of 4,000 people working remotely. And only a few folks are even allowed to use Zoom. So James, what are your thoughts on this?
Sure. A lot of what we're going through right now and are experiencing with our customers and seeing across the industry is that a predefined plan of action is really important to make sure that everything's taken care of in a secure way. All of our customers were able to migrate within a week to have solid work from home platforms that were able to be run from the living room, the dining room, your cell phone, what have you, because we had already put together a security plan that was extensible from the start. So having plans in place before the crisis is always going to be the biggest thing to allow you to weather that type of a disaster or some type of a pandemic or anything like that. A lot of customers, when they're operating from home, have their kids on the same network. They've got their Xboxes, their PlayStations, their what have yous. Being able to secure that home network and provide a secure access point into the office, into data centers, into cloud environments is really big. And it's going to be, and it has been in the last couple of months, the single largest threat vector where companies are getting attacked, just leveraging that home insecure network in a way that nobody ever thought was going to be a threat vector.
Robert, do you want to weigh in a little bit on this one, particularly in the aspect of Zoom, especially Zoom bombing, I guess is the phrase. But Robert, you want to weigh in a little bit on this? I think you have to, yeah, I think you're on mute right now, so you may want to.
There we go. I was trying to be polite over everybody else. Thank you. Zoom has become a very predominantly used platform. At least that's the one that's in the news, along with several other platforms like GoToMeeting and Teams. But with Zoom, it can be made secure very easily by just checking a few boxes and creating a password so that when you connect to your session, I know when Brooke set this up, it has a password in the link, so she did a great job of securing this call that we're having today to prevent from those bomb sessions you're talking about. So I don't know if you want to touch on anything besides Zoom, but that is a good platform used. I work as an adjunct teacher as well, and we have to use Zoom in that platform, and we're teaching students during the day and the evening courses throughout the week, and there hasn't been a problem there because we've secured it like Brooke did here.
Well, we're going to do a deeper dive into the security aspect of working remotely and just in general working in our information technology age. But I'd like to just kind of ask a more philosophical question that certainly SoCal Gas is wrestling with, which is this the new normal? I know it's a little bit of a cliched phrase, but are we going to see perhaps just 1, 2, 3, 4 days a week? Are folks really using this, and what kind of strain is that going to put on maybe some of the infrastructure that we have out there? And this is for the panel. We'll start with you, Robert.
I think that's a great question. As far as strain on infrastructure, it just depends on the plan. Like James mentioned, if you have a good security plan in place with a run book that you can tweak and modify as things adopt and become the new normal. I do see that now that people are adjusting to the work from home life or the telecommuting life, that you're going to see more job sharing so that you can adapt that 6-foot distance in a cubicle environment where every other cubicle is empty, and then you work a half a day from work and you work a half a day from home, or you work completely from home. It really just depends on the environment and the resources you need, whether they're in the office space or whether you can access them from technology remotely. And in most cases today, I can't think of much you can't do with the aid of technology, from having phone calls to video conferencing, to sharing documents with staff and customers easily. So there's not a whole lot you can't do from remote as technology has evolved very easily. And there is a really good way to do it securely. Touching again on James's comment about having that good run book in place so that everything is set up securely. And Corey spoke about the soft phones. So on your smartphones, you can have that app to run a soft phone as though you're sitting in the office, and your customer would never know the difference.
Thank you, Robert. Corey, do you want to expand a little bit about the soft phones?
Yeah, sure. And before I kind of get into that, I think it's really good. It's a really good kind of situation that it's kind of giving everybody a future look into what our future might look, in 5, 10, 20 years down the line, where a lot of people very well could be working, from home. And us as, IT specialists, we have to understand that we have to create, a safe and secure and also user-friendly for you guys, way of being able to work from home, because we understand that adding the problems of technology is not fun when you have to add on, the added stress of moving away from the office, moving back into the home more often, as well as, that sort of stuff. But specifically looking into the soft phone, you can actually download an application on your phone, as Robert had said, to where you can actually, dial out as well as, intercom people as if it's your extension. If you just imagine, your physical desk phone, formed into an application on your phone. That way, again, you can check voicemails regularly, send and receive voicemails or calls and that sort of thing.
Got it. James, any thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting because the gig economy has been doing this for years. The Googles of the world, the high tech companies, people that are all cloud based. This has been the normal for them for a while. So the pandemic has really kind of forced the average business, the brick and mortar, into what other people have already kind of almost somewhat perfected. The problem's been when they haven't had a plan to do it. And you just get an executive order saying, hey, guess what? Tomorrow you're working from home. People kind of panicked a little bit. The technology is definitely there. The security is definitely there. The way and processes of getting this stuff done is a proven process. It really does come down to making sure that you plan and execute the stuff ahead of time, or if you kind of got caught short, working with people that can facilitate and get you set up in a way that's going to be secure, not cause pain points, not cause problems with your people, staff, customers. The technology is definitely there. Everybody, especially in the Valley, has got access to high-speed internet. To Corey's point with soft phones and voice over IP, cell phones now in general are basically voice over IP devices. That's what they use in the back end to communicate. The majority of the telephone companies communicate voice over IP between each other when they're sending phone calls to and from. So that technology is already there. We just kind of got forced in as information workers in the brick and mortar to have to kind of deal with it tomorrow instead of in a few years.
I guess this is more philosophical than IT question, but how do we address concerns about employees working more than 8 hours, shutting it off? It's an incredible tool, but it's also in some ways an electronic leash. So how do we put some parameters on that?
We've actually worked really heavily with our team to make sure that they are getting that work-life balance. I know I've been in this industry for a really long time. 100-hour work weeks for me is, it's a light week. Our people need to be able to come in, do their work, check out, be a part of the family, have their personal life, have their work-life balance, because they will tear themselves apart. We talk weekly with our staff about that healthy level and the balance, because they're finding it's really easy just to get up off the couch, walk over to the dining room table, log on and start doing work just because it's there. It's definitely got to be a conscious effort from employers and the employees as well to maintain that balance, because it can get unhealthy real quick.
Are we going to see, to that effect, are we going to be seeing people working kind of in a split shift thing where they're folding their work into their lives more by getting to the office, doing 4 hours and then doing 6-8 hours at home? Is it going to be kind of doing a work shift thing, especially in Southern California where there's transportation concerns as the freeways get a little more crowded, et cetera? Are we going to see a split shift kind of a thing?
Yeah, I would say definitely we're going to see a work-life balance effect occur, and you're going to see that happen more often, and maybe not so much as a split shift, but in every other day shift kind of thing, and also allowing people to augment their travel or their commute depending on where they're located and where their office is. But with the aid of technology, anything's possible today, to be honest with you.
Got it. One of the things that we're seeing is, and this goes to cybersecurity as much as anything else, is we're going to see a lot of intellectual property flying through the strata. Robert, how are we securing intellectual property while engaging with a remote workforce and servicing the customers? I mean,
it's a great
some
question.
of that stuff is quite proprietary.
Fantastic question. It's more than IP. Your intellectual property is a a small part of it, but your policies, your procedures, any data or run book information that you have, you want to secure it. So with the aid of VPNs, so your virtual private networks, when you log in from remote, whether it be from an office assigned laptop preferably, but in some cases organizations don't have that luxury, so they make it available for them staff member to log in from their desktop at home and remote in over the VPN once that's set up. And over that secure tunnel and with other tools in place, you can make sure that remote desktop is also up to speed with security patches and updates. You don't want to have a virus come from the remote machine into the office. So there's those things you have to look for as well. But with the aid of security passwords and then two-factor authentication is pretty big now. When you log into your bank, you're receiving text on your phone to verify that it's you. So there's several apps out there, like Duo is one that allows you to inexpensively put a platform in place quickly that double factor authenticates that user, that when they're logging in, then they have to okay it from their smartphone as well. And then providing those extra levels of security and a good password vault so that all your passwords are protected in the organization. Because our workflow is also going to change, and we're going to be adding staff, and you may never meet them. They may work from remote, and you may do things over Zoom, and you need to control that information and the password. So setting up the enterprise password vault or a local password vault on your server platform allows you to control who has access to the keys, depending on the level of position you have.
Thank you. Corey, what sort of equipment am I going to need for all of what Robert just explained?
Yeah, sure, not a problem. And kind of going back to what he was saying, it's actually something I just went over 30 minutes ago in a networking class, and I'm just about to wrap up just because the semester's ending here, is implementing and obviously updating as it comes along with specific situations like this COVID-19 thing. Bouncing off what James said, having a plan for your BYODs, your bring your own devices, on what the acceptable use policy is, your AUPs about, what sort of data is allowed to be stored on personal devices and, things of that nature. Because again, people are not perfect. And if you lose a device, people somehow get into those devices, and now they were able to get, very secured company information that was, no matter what you do on the inside, if it's accessed from somebody else's device and they lose it, then game over. Two-factor authentication, password stuff, that's perfect. But as of right now, TVC does provide, and I'm sure James and Robert do, also provide. It's pretty standard for business grade equipment, even for small businesses at that point, to provide VPNs with the proper encryption and things of that matter. That way, when you are taking information to and from your office to your house, then obviously people who are in the middle aren't able to retrieve that sort of information. But yeah, no, that he does bring up a good point, Robert, about not being able to, or at least I should say, keeping the policies up to date as far as not being able to leave sort of company information. And make sure your employees are updated on the rules and policies they should be following. And obviously, if they have questions, come to us and we'll discuss on what they have.
That's you bring up a policy point that I want to throw out to everybody. James, I'm going to throw this at you first, and then everybody can weigh in. All right. So I have a small staff. How do I set up the policies and education? Where do I get education for my employees? How do I create that basic handbook that says you shall use your phone this way, you shall use your computer that way, and the telecom commuting in between is going to be done this, that, and the other. How do I go about setting all of that up so that we do have that policy, James?
Sure. That's where I feel it really comes down to being able to lean on and leverage a trusted advisor. At Mythos Technology, that's kind of a role that we fit with all of our customers, whether they be two-man shops or 3,000 person enterprises. it's really our core competency, figuring out how all that stuff works, working between the human resources departments, the operations departments, technical resources, really kind of outlining a framework of what needs to be done, doing an audit with the customer to figure out where their shortfalls are or where their gaps are in the policies, procedures, and process, and then developing that information to fill in those gaps, deploying it amongst their staff, and then coming back on a quarterly basis and making sure, testing it, making sure that the employees know what's going on, they're following the process, they're following the procedure, all the different software security and apparatuses are in place to make sure that that company's protected. It really becomes a life cycle experience that we as that trusted advisor help facilitate.
Does that fold into, or it sounds like that would fold into a larger disaster recovery plan?
100%.
If anything, in Southern California, we're used to fires and floods and earthquakes and all sorts of things, smog. But one of the things that, this is a new one for all of us, and it may certainly not be the first. So how do we, and this, again, this folds into all of our panelists, please weigh in on this. How do we set up that disaster recovery plan for the next disaster, not the one that we're currently dealing with at this point?
The best way to broach that is from awareness training and then tabletop exercises. So with most organizations, you're going to have that annual cyber awareness training that's going to teach people about email phishing, reviewing links before they click on them, just taking them through the steps to make sure that your IP and your data is protected. You can have all the end tools, meaning antivirus solutions in place on your devices. You can have all the best technology in place, but having a signature come in before a device has been updated, that's all it takes is one little misclick, or open one little Word file that has a macro that blows up and goes out and basically encrypts all your data. And then you're faced with making that decision to recover from backup. Hopefully they have a good DR plan in place like James spoke about earlier. If they don't have a disaster plan in place, then you're kind of like scrambling and figuring out what to do. So it's super important to have that annual cyber awareness and security training so that people are thinking about it. It's top of mind. It's not something that they read about, 3 years ago, but it's in front of them. And then each year things change, tools come out, new information's available, and keeping people informed. There's also great tools that you can subscribe to as an organization. One of the most predominantly one used is Know Before. If you go to their website, you can actually subscribe to a service and they will send you phishing attacks. And they will actually see who clicks on the links. And then if that person does, then you put them through additional training. So you can subscribe to tools like that to help you proactively and help train people to see what to look for. Unfortunately, I had a client recently who called me stressed out that their HR person, who was also their CFO, because it's a small company, had sent his form to change his payroll deposit, direct deposit, to an outside email that had his name on it, but with a different email address that she didn't catch. Fortunately, they caught it at the last minute that we were able to go into the tools and blacklist that email address from coming in again. But that's one example of things that can happen, and money can disappear quickly, and things can happen at the blink of an eye or a click of a mouse. So you just got to be aware and make sure you have that training in place so that people are informed.
Yeah, Robert makes a really good point there. We just had a customer, maybe a few weeks ago, where they had exactly that email phishing scam that looked like it came from one of their, managers at that point, and they went out and bought a ton of prepaid Amazon cards, which obviously is not the, most fun thing to do. Obviously, finding out that it wasn't your manager who had you go out and buy $500 and realize, hey, like I'm out of money now. But again, having that plan perfect, updating it every year, like Robert said, that's necessary, because as we protect, there's a need for us to protect, because the bad guys get worse. You obviously develop tools and different ways of trying to, penetrate networks as well as, steal information and stuff. So as long as, they get worse, we're trying to be better, and obviously protect you guys from their advancing.
One thing to keep in mind too is all size companies are affected. It's not just big giant corporations or small guys. Whether it's a $500 hit with Amazon gift cards or a $50,000 wire or a whatever, it still hurts everybody. The big boys, when unauthorized wires get sent out, it hurts. Somebody loses a job. It's not a good thing. And same thing with those gift cards. Somebody's probably going to get smacked for that. So everybody needs to be prepared and have their people trained and have processes in place. It's not just for the gig people anymore. It really is all businesses.
The other thing that happens is the bad people are taking advantage of the COVID-19. And I was reading some stats just this morning that there's 667% spike in phishing attacks just focused on COVID-19. So they're hitting people in their weak spot where they're wanting to give or they're wanting to do this or that. In addition to that, Google basically is blocking 18 million COVID-19 scams daily. So 18 million, and that's growing. So it's unfortunate, but the bad guys look for opportunities like this to capitalize on people's goodness or their weakness, depending on the situation they're in. So got to be aware.
Thank you. This is a bit of a selfish question because some of us are not experts like you guys with 20 years of experience or highly educated, highly trained like Corey and all. So working from home, I'm now the IT guy. And you could probably find no less qualified person for touching any of this stuff. For small businesses, for that single shingle person, or those that are who find themselves being the IT person, what are some basic steps that we can take? First, I'm going to throw this at Corey first, but then open it up. What are some basic things that we can keep in mind and places where that are reliable, where we can get information, that's safe information, so that we can work on some of this stuff? I have an IT department I can always call. That's not always the case with a lot of things. Corey, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. Unfortunately, it's taking on that role of being the IT guy without, expertise or something like that, obviously, is always a hit and miss. Obviously, I've got to say my first thing, my first piece of advice is call one of us, at least discuss, what you're planning on implementing. That way we can take a look and see, is this going to work, first of all, but two, is this going to be best and most cost efficient, for what you're trying to achieve at home and stuff. So as far as, obtaining information, and as well as all that stuff, I mean, I can only say, unfortunately, with all of the bad guys out there, and like Robert had said, with the spike of everything, unfortunately, people are kind of crappy about that as far as hitting people in their weak spots. They find opportunities in fear and all that stuff. So finding information like that typically should probably go through, a specialist first, because anything that you find online could very well be, biased or against that, or even an attack itself. So,
James, what are your thoughts?
From a protection standpoint, it really comes down to common sense. Make sure you've got antivirus. Make sure you've got passwords on your Wi-Fi. They're not your address or your name or something goofy like that. Really use that common sense mentality when you're reading an email for something that may be suspect and there's a link in there. Hover your mouse over that link and see what the link actually points to. If it's a bunch of letters, .jp / bunch of stuff, it's probably not the COVID relief fund. Things like that, common sense. It's kind of like in construction. Measure twice, cut once. Read your emails twice before you click. Add that extra layer of caution. 90% of, if not more, 98% of all types of malware phishing, spear phishing, things that end up in leaking data or money are caused by human error. Just reading something wrong, clicking something wrong. Oops, I thought I was logging into Office 365, but no, that was a malware site that just owned my information now. Whereas if you would have hovered over that link and seen that it wasn't going to Microsoft, it wasn't going to office.com, using those clues is going to be very, very helpful.
Is it just a Microsoft thing, or do Apple folks get it too?
Everybody's going to get it.
They all have updates that need to be done, from the iOS phones to the iPads. You want to make sure, as James mentioned, with not just an endpoint protection with the antivirus, but make sure your computer's updated with all the Microsoft updates, the security patches, the latest roll-ups. Make sure your applications that you're using are up to date with your third-party vendor. But most importantly, I look at checklists. Have a good, solid checklist in place. Take that checklist and kind of review it. And if you need help, reach out to one of our firms or your current IT provider. Ask them for a checklist that you can provide those remote people to make sure that their system's protected and has all the right updates on it, and that when they do connect, it doesn't bring anything to the office unwanted.
As we start to wind up our conversation today, I'm going to encourage our viewer audience to, by all means, send in your questions. You can message them directly with the tab at the bottom under Q&A or under chat. And in the meantime, as somebody who has the innocuous claim of going to every single Starbucks here in the Inland Empire, are the days of free Wi-Fi, open Wi-Fi dead? Some of us had to, for whatever reason, needed to rely on some of that Wi-Fi, not for anything particularly important, but just general communication. Team?
I would say there's no such thing as
general Wi-Fi.
I would say there's no such thing as free.
Yeah.
When it comes to free Wi-Fi at Starbucks, McDonald's, wherever you go to, that would be there for somebody who wanted to do some browsing around and researching, but I would never do any banking. I would never do any purchasing of anything from a shopping cart. I have a good friend who's an ethical hacker, as they call themselves, and he loves to go into Starbucks, and as he walks out, he'll hand the teenage young ladies or men a Post-it note with their password on it just to freak them out and to see the look on their face. So when you're on a free Wi-Fi with the right tools, you can see everything going on, and ethical hackers have those tools, and people who like to play those games have those tools. So, and they start very young. For as little as pizza and soda, they'll do anything just for fun. So there are hacking clubs that do it, but be mindful of the free environment. Make sure if you're going to be in that free environment that you're using the VPN if you have to connect to work. Once you're on that VPN, it's encrypted and your data is pretty secure, but still just be mindful, super aware of what you do. Do not do any shopping, and do not do any banking.
Yeah, it's like, Robert and James will know this. It's a man-in-the-middle attack where you can walk in with, a Raspberry Pi, a little tiny computer about this big or so, and have it in your backpack with a power supply, have no idea, everybody else would have no idea that you were actually, say, for example, setting up that computer as Starbucks Wi-Fi, and then you can redirect their traffic to legit sites, for example, but in the meantime, it goes through you. You're the man in the middle, so you can obtain information. Like Robert said, no shopping, no financial information, no personal information, please, over the open stuff. If you absolutely need to, if you're at Starbucks, like you said, connect to a VPN. That way, you have proper encryption, and that way nobody can see that. But I find myself, it's so easy, especially going into mom and pop shops for, say like a food or an ice cream shop or something like that, where they put up their password for their Wi-Fi, and I'm able to connect. And now I can be on their network and see everything that's on there, from credit card machines to servers to everything like that. And if they leave, unfortunately, ISPs, say Spectrum and Frontier, recently have changed, but in the past, they would leave their routers at default logins. So you can use the admin password or admin and password as a login. And at that point, then I literally just connected to your Wi-Fi within 20 seconds. Now I can shut off everything. I can turn off credit card machines here and there. I can open up remote access, so that way I can obviously, go in at random times without you even knowing, which is obviously worse than just shutting down everything. So yeah, I mean, it's a big issue, and as long as you are careful about it, as well as using a VPN, again, if you absolutely need to, that should be a solution there for you.
Let me stop you for a second. Again, please explain what a VPN is, guys.
So a VPN at that point then is a virtual private network. It takes basically your computer, takes it from connecting to your office over a public network, and it actually virtualizes it to where you're inside of the network. And when you do so, it does create a tunnel as long as you are creating, or at least as long as the IT professionals, as we would create an up-to-date, secure, encrypted method. At that point, you can talk to devices on the inside of the network without having people from the middle, or at least from point A to point B, being able to see what you're doing.
Got it. Well, we're not getting too many questions from the audience, so I think we're going to wrap some things up with some final thoughts. I'm going to work from left to right on my screen. So James, what are some final thoughts? Any questions that should have been asked that we didn't ask that need some answers?
Sure. If you don't have a plan, get one. If you don't have people that can help you with that plan, get them. This is not going to be the last time that we have the pandemic experience. I foresee another one of these type of events happening, whether it's in 2 months, 3 months, 6, or a year from now. Something's going to happen again. People are going to freak out. People are going to pull that ripcord, and we're going to be back into a lockdown status. If you got caught short this last go around, just please make sure that you don't on the next. I think as a nation, we've been relatively, I guess successful is not the best word, but it's what I'll use, in dealing with this. We haven't all crashed and burned. There's been a tremendous amount of loss for a lot of people, but overall, the gears did not come to a complete grinding halt. If we run through this again, I'm not confident that would not occur at a later date if we're not planning like we should be. So use your common sense, get some stuff in place, get prepared, have a plan of action. Like Robert said, build out some run books so you can, it's choose your own adventure book, right? A, B, C, D, what just happened, where do I go? Have the right people in play, work with your people, communicate well, provide for them, treat them like a team, not just your employees. And I think we'll head out on the brighter side of things.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. Robert.
Just to echo James, the checklist is important to me. The run book is also a necessity. I think the one thing that should be top of mind right now as we're looking at and things are being talked about going back to work, work with your trusted IT advisor company or reach out to one of us and maybe take a look at the systems before you bring people back. Things have been off. Things haven't been running for a couple of months. You want to make sure that the desktops, if they haven't been on, that they're updated with antivirus, with the latest definitions, that the security updates are done. Make sure your server's running, and that so when you do have staff come back, you don't have frustration and chaos at a different level. You want to make it a welcome back, welcome home kind of experience. But those checklists and then the annual awareness training. I can't speak highly enough about that. Help your staff have the knowledge and make it top of mind so that not only can they use it for you and your organization to make your place more secure, but they can take it home to their family and then broaden it from there, because the more we all know, the safer we'll be. And that's the objective here, is to do things securely and safely with tech. So thank you.
Thank you. And Corey, any final thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Again, thanks for having us. Really appreciate it. I'm glad we get to, be here and talk to people who are actively looking for, ways to better themselves in their networks and data. Again, what I said in the beginning, this is a good insight for what we're going to be looking at. As I grow further in the field, I'm going to hopefully see that everybody's ready for that change of a lot of people working away from the office and at home. Everything's going to be cloud-based at that point. And the biggest thing here is we love to see it when you are proactive and not reactive, because we hate to see it when you guys come to us with issues or, where places you got burned with, phishing scams or things where people were able to access your data. We don't like to see that. So please be proactive. Give us a call. I know personally with TVC, I'm sure the other companies do as well. We give a free technology audit At that point, see what you guys are working with right now, what your goals are, and if the stuff that you have right now will work for what you guys have or not. And you know, just being real honest about it, just because again, we do not like to see this happen. We're really good guys fending off the bad guys. So again, really appreciate you guys having us, and yeah.
Well, thank you all for taking the time out of your busy days to speak. I think this conversation has helped a lot of folks and maybe saved a lot of heartache down the road. Any final thoughts, Brooke? Otherwise, I'm going to say thank you and say goodbye.
Just want to thank everyone for participating and for everyone who attended as well.
Take care, everyone. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Take care. Stay safe.
Yes.